I call to order the Board of Trustees special meeting for May 2nd, 2023, and the time is now 6 o'clock. Trustee Johnson, would you like to give the invocation?
Sure. If you'd like to stand and bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the citizens of Etna Township and the freedoms that we enjoy here. Please be with those who protect us, who keep our freedoms, who keep us safe, keep us from harm, and be by their family's side when they're away doing their job, helping us. Amen.
Please join with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. McKee?
Here. I move to set the limit of not more than one speech of 3 minutes length on the same question of the same day for each trustee. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, again, limiting one speech limits it to statements, not a proper discussion. If meeting materials would be properly provided to all trustees before the meeting with detailed agenda items and planned motions and resolutions clearly detailed, a limit of 3 minutes would be acceptable, but again, we need to get rid of the one speech limit. The board doesn't follow it for the other two trustees, and don't we want a proper discussion on this? And regarding the meeting materials on that, they need to be provided to all board members more than a day before the meeting. I don't even know the agenda items until a day before the meeting. That's just improper. And we need to be better on that. And the parliamentarian that came in stated that should be changed. And I don't know why we're not. So I would be against the 1 minute speech limit, or the one speech limit, but 3 minutes is fine with proper materials provided ahead of time.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, discussion, Mr. Johnson?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, again, there was no input for myself in this agenda as the parliamentarian and common practice dictates. Additionally, why are residents, let alone a trustee, only provided the agenda the day before a meeting? This is improper practice of exclusion and hiding, which needs to end. And Ms. McKee, you stated to the reporter that the administrator would seek the priorities of each trustee, yet that is not being done by the administrator, which says they have nothing to do with the agenda. You're maintaining complete control of the agenda, which is not proper. If we're going to move forward with any progress and working together, the administrator needs to be able to do the job they were hired to. And every other entity, the administrator puts together the agenda with the input of all trustees. But Ms. McKee, you want to hold on to total control of that. And that is not proper. So we have a lot of things we need to deal with. Building maintenance. The buildings for a year now
You're going off course, Mr. Evans. We're talking about
agenda items. These are agenda items. Correct. These are agenda items. These are agenda items I have asked for.
It's not on there. We're going to stick to
These are right for the adoption of agenda. These are agenda items I have asked for. The building maintenance. The doors are rusting out. Mr. Johnson is in charge of building maintenance, or was before. I believe is the administrator now. Are we going to let them rust until we have to replace them? It's cheaper to repair and maintain than replace. It's been ignored. Big video retention records. The videos are illegally continue to be destroyed. We don't have that proper policy which allows overriding. Why isn't that included? I've asked for that. An update on all the departments. Road crew hiring. We had another individual submit his resignation Monday, and another individual that is not taking the job that was offered to him. So we're going to be down to another three-man crew Why isn't that on the agenda? I asked for it to be. And then small solar. I don't know what you plan on with the solar farms, but that's not the small solar, and that's been ignored. So I move to include those various items in this agenda so we can actually talk about Nita Township business.
So it died for lack of second. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to adopt the minutes from February 21st, 2023, March 7th, 2023, March 28th, 2023 meetings as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson, Trustee Johnson?
None.
Trustee Evans?
Yes, again, these minutes do not properly reflect the business of the township by excluding the motions made in an attempt to hide the actions that are presented that are needed by this township. If you watch the videos that I record and compare them to the minutes, it's totally different. Additionally, the minutes from March were just provided today, the two of them. We have not had proper time to review them. The fiscal officer hasn't even had time to review them. So these need to be timely provided so we can review these. These are over 2 months old. It takes a while to recall what happened, and we're still not dealing with, and I've asked repeatedly, why are we at times 3 months behind on minutes? The ORC, Ohio Revised Code, requires prompt production of minutes, which is typically the next meeting. And that hasn't been addressed of why we're behind and why we can't get caught up. But again, why aren't these provided to the board and to the fiscal officer well in advance, not day of, so they could be properly reviewed for changes needed? Unless you just want to shove them through as is without proper review. So I would move that we remove the March minutes from the motion and approve the February 21st, since they were the only ones that were provided in a timely manner for proper review.
So motion died for lack of a second. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I would like to turn the meeting over to our new administrator, Nita Hanson, for reports.
Thank you, President McKee. Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. I want to give a couple updates on terms of the Fred Garland Bragg Jr. Memorial ceremony. The dedication ceremony
Can't
for
hear.
the
Hold on.
microphone. I'm sorry.
We can't hear you.
Can you pull that microphone
so
up a little
sorry.
closer?
Speaking of,
Thank you.
Is that better?
maybe if you sit down and speak.
Oh, you
into
want me
it.
to sit down? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just used
You
to
are fine,
standing.
whatever way you want to do
Okay,
it.
can you hear me now?
Better.
All right, thank you. The dedication ceremony for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, sponsored by the Bragg family, will be held on Monday, May 29th at 11 a.m. at High Point Park. Board President McKee will be the master of ceremonies. Trustee Evans will be making remarks. Mr. Bragg has arranged for a contingent of the Licking County 4-H band to play some patriotic music to kick off the event and play taps at the conclusion. Mr. Bragg expects that the ceremony will take about an hour. Information is posted on the township website, and we just want everybody to spread the news so that we can have a nice dedication ceremony out here at the park. I wanted to give a report about payments made through the various joint economic development districts, or you might have heard the term JED. That's what they refer to. The districts have made their first quarter distributions. JED 1 paid $27,444.83 to the township. JED 2 paid $16,878.57. JED 3 paid $38,587.66. JED 4 paid $1,535.70. JED 7 paid $21,589.63 for a total of all the first quarter payments of $106,036.39. I had mentioned at my last report that we are planning some community events, and we've made some more progress on that. We're considering sponsoring a Shred It Day with residents encouraged to make donations of food and supplies to benefit our blessing box. And we're investigating the possibility of having a family movie night in the park. If you have suggestions about other community events, please reach out to me. We are continuing to work with Licking County Soil and Water on the issue on Smoke Road. And we have been connected to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, who will be conducting a site visit to the area. And there'll be discussions of potential plans for remediation. Those are ongoing. I wanted to just take a minute to acknowledge that we have an excellent road crew. They diligently check the neighborhoods for issues. If a resident calls, Mr. Copley and his crew are responsive. They might put up signs or clean up trees, clean up other debris. Whatever it is, the crew takes care of it all, and Mr. Copley does a great job of following up on issues presented during public comments. So congratulations to our crew. And I just want to say, coming into an organization, what a blessing it has been to me to be supported by such long-term staff members. It's a real blessing to have someone that mans the office and our zoning officer who have been long-term employees, and they do a great job, and that's been very helpful to me. I wanted to let you know that a meeting is being scheduled with CODA and ODOT to discuss transit routes that will connect workers with their jobs in Etna. And that meeting will be discussing options to increase mobility and reduce the number of vehicles, all the while providing means for people to get to their jobs that are being created in Etna Township. There'll be more information on that. At our last public meeting, Trustee Evans asked me to instruct the sheriff deputies to write more speeding tickets. So when Deputy Batros had stopped in at Town Hall to check on things, I conveyed Mr. Evans' instructions and asked him to inform the other deputies. Deputy Batros expressed his support of the movable radar speed devices, which collect useful data to assist the deputies in identifying the time of day or the days of the week to patrol certain areas for targeted speed deterrence. Some highlights for zoning include that there were 22 zoning permits issued in the month of April for total fees of $2,750. The Zoning Commission met on April 11th and will meet next on May the 9th. And the Board of Zoning Appeals met on March 16th and granted a variance request to Southwest Licking School District for fencing around the updated football stadium. One other issue that came up really this afternoon on the renewal for the property and casualty insurance. That renewal needs to be discussed this evening. Ms. Varian and I have worked to determine that the rates that were proposed in the material that was distributed to the trustees by Ms. Varian on April 16th are the proper amounts, and the instruction included the payment of the annual premium of $30,000. I don't know what he did. Oh, I'm sorry. The anniversary payment of $30,553, and then we need to sign the anniversary information agreement. And any schedule changes on a separate sheet, but I know of no schedule. So I would recommend that the trustees move to approve this annual anniversary contribution of $30,553 and authorize Ms. Varian to sign the anniversary information acknowledgement. And Mr. Evans, I will apologize to you because I know you asked me about whether I would be making any recommendations, and I did not know about this until I was reviewing Ms. Varian's information that she provided, and it was not included, and it's action that needs to be taken. So I
It
just
should have been added to the agenda then in the beginning. I think we got to get away from adding things in reports, especially
So,
motion
You just got
items.
that this evening, Ms. Hanson?
well,
this evening?
that's when that was discovered. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
So
Okay,
I apologize,
no.
Mr. Evans, but it's something that needs to be.
I've seen that before. We've had that for quite a
No,
while.
I agree that it was provided April the 16th, but I didn't discover that it wasn't included in Ms. Varian's information until this evening, and it's something that needs to be acted on. So that's why I included it in my report with a recommendation that the trustees,
Because the
Yeah,
last
thank you,
email,
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. I make a motion to pay the anniversary payment of $30,553 and to sign the check outside of the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
yeah, again, we need to start doing things properly here. And the last email I saw that Ms. Hanson had gone through and reviewed and said all the figures seemed correct and that's at that time. I mean, this should have been provided to the board. I haven't reviewed it finally, and because we didn't know we were having action on it tonight. So we really need to, just for the transparency. And again, we don't have it in front of us to review before so we're being asked to vote on things that we haven't properly prepared to vote on.
So my reports were made to Ms. Varian to substantiate the amount. All of the information was given to Ms. Varian. She gave it to all of us on April the 16th. So it wasn't until I realized in the materials that it was not before the board, and I need to get it in some fashion before the board this evening so that we can make sure and pay the.
By May 3rd or something like that? or
Well,
May
they said they
2nd?
would hold it until after the meeting this evening,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
But again, there's that separation between the fiscal officer doesn't deal with the policies and stuff like this. So
Well,
I
can
guess
only
this is
say
a
that-
learning experience.
Yes, I agree. It's like a learning experience, and all I know is that it all came through Ms. Varian, and I was reporting to Ms. Varian. I'm not casting any blame. I'm just saying that that's how it all ended up, and we have to get this approved.
Okay. But that's not her.
Thank you.
business.
Discussion, finish your discussion, Mr. Evans?
No, I'm going to vote no because I haven't had time to properly prepare it.
Okay, roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on over to.
Before you move
So, yes,
on,
ma'am.
we also need a motion authorizing signature on the anniversary information acknowledgement form that's part of this.
Yes, I did. I signed the
Oh,
check
is it
outside
part
of
of
the
the
meeting.
I apologize.
No,
If
you're
she
fine.
says we signed a check, I don't know.
So is that the,
That's
We
different.
need a separate one for Julie to actually sign the document, is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I was asking for,
Okay,
yes.
so we'll make a motion for Ms. Varian to sign the document outside of the meeting.
Yes, it's called an anniversary information acknowledgement form.
Okay, anniversary acknowledgement form. Okay. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
Just going to vote no because I haven't had time to properly review it.
Sure. Okay, roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Thank you. We'll move over to
Thank
public.
you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Hanson. We'll move over to public comments and are limited to the items. 3 minutes on the agenda, please.
Go first. Ryan Davis, 8807 Watkins Road. I took a few meetings off, felt kind of invigorated, didn't deal with the hostility in this room. Looking forward to get some questions answered. I do appreciate your updates. I did watch the last meeting, I did attend. I know it's going to be a growing learning process. It's nice to have updates. We haven't had updates on several things. So any update is better than some of the updates we haven't had before. As a member of the NCA, New Community Authority Park Related Board in Etna, I'm curious about the master plan. That board has not met simply because we are still waiting on tax documents. No money has been collected, and I know from attending the water board that the plans for the sewer, which are contingent for the main body of the park, haven't been discussed or finalized yet. So that sale hasn't been completed. So designing a park before every piece of land is 100% locked down, I feel like is getting into the conversation I missed and the vote I missed last time with Pond. I feel like we gotta have things there. Let's see. The water being, if Ms. Hanson gets voted the primary point of contact for the water board, I look forward to you sharing water board updates with the township. That would be good, unless the residents actually go to the water board. We've been lacking those updates, so I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Records request. It will be nice to have one point of contact that has access to all the records. I know our fiscal officer did the best she could with the access she had. Although limited, it will be nice to have one point of contact for residents to be able to access and get public records in a timely manner. Solar farms, I'm hoping that's exclusionary zones we're finally talking about. The pond. I went to the Licking County Pond Clinic they had at the Granville Brewing last night. Saw 2 of our trustees there. That was a good thing to see. Hopefully there's some information that was learned last night. I think it's important that if mistakes are made, that we correct them tonight. Maybe we got ahead of ourselves. It's perfectly fine for the board to admit that, hey, maybe we didn't have the understanding of it, and they make a change tonight. That's what I'm kind of hoping to see. I think that's what needs done for the community until we get it, and maybe we go right back to it, but I still think it's not done the right way. State security. Ms. McKee, I still would like to see the, I don't know if I even submitted the public records request, I stood up here and asked for it, but I still would like to see the missing server that supposedly you're 100% aware of. So maybe in signing that, we can get that information tonight. And Ms. Hanson, maybe as public records, once you get that access, maybe we can get that from you. That'd be great. I've been up here, I've been hard on the trustees, I've been polite, I've asked questions. I'm just kind of looking at this maybe a new day with a new person sitting over there to kind of bring some calm demeanor to the board. So,
3 minutes, Mr. Wright. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Adam Kelly, 8990 Smoke Road. Wanted to talk about that pond that's next door to my house. We had talked about it about a month ago. They voted last time, I wasn't at that last meeting, to discuss filling it in. And I just had some issues. I get that you probably talked to some soil and water information. So some of this is, known information. I apologize, but since I don't know what you're going to talk about later, I got to say it now. So a couple of things. One, on the last meeting, a few people had mentioned that the pond doesn't really serve a purpose, and I would argue that other than the fact that it's a wetland area that serves that purpose, it serves the purpose of just about every pond in this area, which is to keep the water that's in it from being somewhere else, which is an issue because it's spring fed. I know we need to look at, if we're going to fill that in, it would have to be doing a lot of research as far as what would happen with the underground water pressure, because I think the next lowest area in the next lowest spot in the area is my basement, which I don't care for. As far as liability goes, I know a few people have mentioned we could be liable if some kid decides to take a dip in the pond and drowns. I looked into that, and I also spoke with soil and water folks. That's really not the case. Governmental bodies are generally exempt from that kind of liability, especially if you're putting up no swimming signs, that kind of stuff. And as long as you're not putting a beach on it where it looks like it's a swimming area, you should be fine. And so that, pardon the pun, but that doesn't really need water. And a proposed action, I spoke with Linda Nicodemus today, and so if this is information you all have, I apologize. I know the EPA and the Fish and Wildlife have funds available for treating this this wetland area and treating it correctly so it's clean water. It does the job of cleaning the water in the area, and that it drains correctly, because during water events, my yard gets flooded, but generally the water flows the other way, and it needs to keep doing that. You can take a look at Hebron. There's a park in Hebron called Evans Park on Refugee Road. They have worked with them and they get a lot of money from the EPA and from Fish and Wildlife to take care of that and to do the work even to get that done. So I think if we work with them, we could have a really beautiful park and really beautiful wetland out there, and it's a great opportunity for education for the kids who are across the street too. And so, we need to address that. And of course, we need to take a look at, any changes are going to may cause some, drainage issues, which would be a problem. So I throw that out there.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Cattle.
Teresa Ogershock, 44 Trail West. If the issue of the insurance came up before the meeting, a addendum to the agenda could have been announced, discussed, and voted on at the time when it says to adopt the agenda, rather than adding it in afterwards. That would have been the proper procedure. You are charged to working together as a board, which means all three members working together with the administrator. The administrator working together with all three members of the board. It's a two-way street. You serve the board. You don't serve one person on the board. You failed your first assignment. And I don't know if it was because of the way the assignment was presented to you. You presented a solution before discussion was made. You did not do due diligence on the area. That property, I know, was bought before two members of this board were trustees. However, with Ms. McKee being in charge of the parks area, she should have had plat maps, which should have shown on there that there are wetlands on that property. Wetlands are an essential, not an optional, an essential part of the ecosystem, ecosystem, however you want to word it, in Ohio. They should be managed, not discarded. All this, as it says, should have been brought up before a solution of just filling it in was presented. Due diligence on all matters needs to be done. Due diligence on any new member, any new part of the agenda, old business, new business, from all three trustees and you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Judy Kaffmeyer, 29 Roma Court. Well, I'm pleased and thankful that exclusionary zones will be discussed during the old business session at this meeting tonight. And when this topic first came to my attention nearly a year and a half ago, Hartford Township was already caught up in their solar farm nightmare. Secret negotiations and whispered deals had been going on for several months previous, and most residents were totally unaware about how the landscape of their quiet farming community was about to be changed. Suffice to say that a small group of concerned citizens have halted this energy improvement project for the time being. But they are battling big money, and the fight is tedious, frustrating, exhausting, and expensive. I didn't want the township to experience what Hartford has been battling. And when House Bill 2 was passed, it appeared that there were people in the State House that actually cared about our rural communities and preserving them for the next generations. Changes appear to be in the works as we speak, and I believe that these issues should be decided at our local level with our trustees. Do not let bigger bureaucrats decide our fate. I hope that the discussion this evening is all about putting the interests of Etna Township residents first. The CAC conducted a survey and has the information that illustrates how our residents want their township to be now and into the future. I hope that effort does not end as a useless exercise. When you ask for input and you receive input, you have an obligation to implement that input. And thank you again for addressing this very important issue.
Thank you, Mr. McKee.
John Kennard, 10785 Palmer Road. You know, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't write anything down, I come with a prepared speech. But after you listen to everything that goes on around here, it always seems to be in the farmer's direction. What we don't want the farmers to do, what we don't want done to our land. I would like to take a poll in here. How many people in this room own 10 acres or more? I call that skin in the game. If you want to make decisions for the farmers, you should have to put some money on the table. They didn't want a Walmart, super Walmart built here. They didn't want a housing development built here. They didn't want no more warehouses built here. So, you know, what are we supposed to do? Farming's getting so high, taxes are getting so high. If you've gotten gas lately, you see what the price of gas is. If you go to the grocery store, you see what that is. If you listen to the fake news, you'll hear about Biden and the Green New Deal. Solar farms, they don't want solar farms now. How are we going to get our power if they do away with all fossil fuel, like he wants to do? And he's heading that way. So if you want to keep the farms in farmland and country setting, maybe we could start a GoFundMe account for farmers. My brothers live in Tennessee. They pay no state income tax. Maybe Ohio should say farmers that own 10 acres or more, or whatever it takes to qualify for CAUB, we don't have to pay state income tax anymore. Other states don't do it. Why can't they make the farmers an incentive to stay in farming?
That's right, that's right.
You know, I mean, that's better yet. Let's pay no income tax. Farmers should have to pay no income tax. They're feeding everybody else, so give them incentive to stay in farming. Because just like they're talking about the solar farms, there's a lot of chit chat on Facebook this week about the discussion about solar farms. I just don't quite get that in a way, because if everybody knows we're going to be all electric pretty soon, so we got to have solar somewhere. It can't be on everybody's rooftop. But I just wish that, you know, people that make comments about this had skin in the game and could say, look, you know, I support the farmers. I own 50 acres, I own 100 acres, I own 1,000 acres. And that is affecting my income. That's affecting my retirement. Second, third, fourth generations don't want to farm anymore. They want to go out and do something else. Younger kids don't want to work like that anymore. But yet we are strapped to, we can't do anything. We just sit there and eat dirt or dirt, you know. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comments?
Gary Burkholder, 254 Trail East, Etna Township. I brought this issue up at the last meeting, and I'll repeat it again. There's a tremendous lack of transparency with the township. And it deals with the minutes. I brought it up at the previous meeting, and I'll reiterate, it's to keep people out of the know. There's no reason minutes should be 3 months behind. You can shake your head all you want, Mrs. McKee.
Oh, I know I can.
But
It's a free country, I sure can.
But it's true. I have made 4 or 5 requests for draft minutes. First, I was told draft minutes aren't public record. Well, they are a public record. I had to make repeated requests for draft minutes. And of course, the draft minutes that I requested for March 7th and 28th, they were just presented today as final minutes. So we continue to play this hide and seek with the minutes. We still don't have any draft minutes for April at all. And when I've requested them, I'm told that the township secretary that those are personal notes and therefore not releasable. The second issue has to do with the pond on Smoke Road. This is what happens when there's a lack of due diligence. That tried to get pushed through with no empirical data to support that decision to fill in that pond. And it's evidenced by the article that appeared in the Newark Advocate talking that apparently there wasn't adequate consultation with Soil and Water. I guess I ask you, Mr. Johnson, how could you support that decision with no data whatsoever? And it's hypocritical when for over a year, the residents of this community have asked you to address and do something about the water and the other issues on the Scannell FedEx property. You won't even talk about it. In fact, you're an obstructionist about it because you won't even put it on the agenda. But yet on that, you were ready to rush to judgment, and it was barely ever discussed. In fact, there was no discussion from you. But when it comes to Scannell, for over a year, you have no response. You won't even address the issue. And my final issue is this false narrative about liability. I think other residents have spoken to it tonight quite well. But my question is, if you're worried about liability, are you going to fill in the pond that is going to be on park property behind Drayton Hall, which is going to be 240 apartments? You said you wanted to fill in the pond, you were worried about liability. Are you going to fill in that pond too? It's going to be next to 240 apartments. In fact, the developer said that's going to be donated to the township because it will be on township property as a fishing pond. So these red herrings of why we ought to jump to conclusions and do things
Mr. Burkholder,
without
3
proper
minutes is up.
planning
Thank you.
is inappropriate. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments tonight? Okay, I'll go ahead and move over to the master plan for Etna Township Community Park. I move to approve the park master plan for Etna Township Community Park with EMH&T not to exceed $49,800 to authorize myself, Rozland McKee, to sign the contract. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
This is, we are hiring, it looks like they're EMH&T to design a park course, to start on our design course, is that correct?
Yes, yes, and it's all there in your documentation.
And-
Everybody read their documentation that was sent out.
We're selecting EMH&T for reasons that they do this a lot for other people around here, that maybe we just know them, or how do we select them?
Well,
Yeah.
we did a couple, just to let you know that EMHT is one of the others that is working, I guess, on the pond situation as well. But they have done other works for Licking County parks. They are on the list for state bidding. Not state bidding, for bidding. They were one of the companies that reached out to us. They came out last year in 2022, and they were interested in putting together, we looked at some of their other parks that they've done around Central Ohio, and some of their other work in Columbus area. And so this is why we selected them as the company, the engineering company, and that's one of their specialties is parks. So this is why they were one of the companies that were selected. But
Do you have a timeline?
remember, there's a board here, so we have to vote to decide on what the
Is there a
board wants to do.
timeline on getting this done? Is it?
No, it's no timeline.
I mean, is this something that's gonna take
Well-
a year to design, or like we should get something back in a month?
30
or
days.
30 days?
Yeah. So it's up to the board if they want to, this stuff went out to you. You should have been able to read over it last week.
All right.
So you had time to look over it, and your questions are there. They're gonna do like a 3D visualizations of the graphics. but there's exclusions, which are the wetlands, which everybody's, we are having a lot of discussions about the wetlands, which are the ponds. So that is excluded, because if we do, in the future, deal with some grant money regarding the wetlands, we can't touch them with this company, because that would exclude us from getting grant money for the wetlands. We decide to get it.
When you're done, I have discussion.
Absolutely.
I'm done.
You guys-
Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, again, putting the cart before the horse, not doing our due diligence. So apparently, we're selecting a company because they came to us and they're listed as state veterinary. This is ridiculous. The park is a major part of our township. It should be the jewel of the township. And we spent a lot of money on it, and it'll be even more money to improve it. Why aren't we submitting a request for proposal to get the best and then make the decision? Ms. McKee stated that she went with the aggregator because they supported the OTA. Well, at the Ohio Township Association, there were numerous park consultants there, park designers, that do fabulous work, and all they focus on is parks. So again, why wouldn't we look to them to see, and again, we don't know if this cost is ordinary or not, so why wouldn't we get additional proposals? And then the other question I have is, we don't even have the parkland. As one of the residents stated, we don't have the center section, that's in escrow. We could have two separate sections, so why are we gonna design something that would have to possibly be redesigned if that doesn't go forward? And the only public input in this proposal is one open house. Why don't we have a park committee? That was discussed before, of, hey, what do the residents want? There's been a lot of requests for that. I believe a week or two ago, we received an email about, hey, are we still doing that? This ignores it. There's no reason to rush into designing a park when we don't even have the land. And if we're gonna do it, get a request for a proposal from others. Because to just say they came to us again, and that's why we're gonna select them, that is not a proper reason. We have a fiduciary responsibility to this township and residents to do what's right, and just picking a designer. And like I said, for the last two OTA conferences, I spoke with those designers in depth. They have some fantastic projects they've done. And why wouldn't we see what they could propose? Even this map that's in here is incorrect on the proposal, on the western edge of it. That shows me that attention to detail. I mean, that's like somebody submitting a resume. If they have errors in that, how much are they paying attention to it? So again, I move that we should table this and put out a proper request for proposal from all those interested and get the best for our residents. Again, we can't treat this like a flip house, just going to one contractor, let's just get it done. We have a real opportunity to affect generations.
Mr. Evans, 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Generations. So we should put more thought into this.
Are you conversation?
I made a motion
Oh, you made a motion.
to table it and open it up for requests for proposals. I think that is very reasonable. There's no rush for it.
Is there a second? So it died for lack of second. Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I'll move over to the speed limit radar. I move to authorize the expenditure of up to $7,000 for the 2 radar speed signs, and to authorize myself Rozland McKee to pick the vendor and to sign the contract. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I do have a discussion. We're not a limited rural township, so really the cost of patrolling, safety and all that should be borne by the county. Now, we're already paying, we've got 4 deputies that we're paying extra for. Is this something that we could borrow from the sheriff's department?
No.
And they don't have these to borrow.
Well, let me just say this. I've tried to borrow for a year, and the 2 that they have are not up and running. They're very expensive. They're on wheels. They move around throughout the county. And I've tried to get those several times, and they're not even up and running. And to have them repaired, they're costly. These here are something that we would own as a township, and they can be placed in different locations. They go on a pole, and we have a lot of complaints coming out of Pike Street here, where I guess they're saying people are driving pretty fast down Pike Street during lunchtime, evening. I don't know if they're going to work or coming from work, trying to get to lunch down at 310 and back up to the warehouses or some of the other businesses up on 40. But this was a way that the township could help, because the sheriff can't be in 2 places at one time. So this would be a way that we could kind of find out where the speeders are. It does a report. We went and visited the town next door, Hebron, and we sat and spent quite a bit of time with them. We watched how the system works over there. They love it. They've had it for 3 years. And it does a report, like I said, of speeders, and you can adjust it. Our superintendent over at the garage would be involved with trying to install them. That would save us some money there. But these are, they've been around with that Hebron for 3 years. They've never had any kind of problems with it. It's actually helped them to monitor when the speeders are in that area. So this is one of the ones that we looked at. Myself and the administrator went down and spent some time at Hebron Police Department, and they went over this with us. And we looked at several others, and they just couldn't compare to this one with Elaine City.
Okay, have you and any of that discussed with the commissioners properly funding and supporting the sheriff's department so that we don't have that cost? Because we're already spending about $500,000 a year on extra deputies that we really shouldn't have to. And this is the same thing that we did with the prosecutors, where we said, you need to support the prosecutor's office, get more, and then they finally did. They did the same thing, Licking County Planning Commission, they brought more on. I would think before we move ahead with this additional expense, that we see if the commissioners, if there is an inventory of these lacking at the county level, that they could provide those so that we could use them. Because again, we're not a limited home rural township, so the tax money goes to the county to pay for all these services. That's why the prosecutors are attorney, that's why the sheriff patrols our stuff. I think we need to put a limit on kind of what we're doing that they should be doing, is what I'm saying. So I would at least say, talk to the commissioners and see if they could get them to do it.
Commissioners have nothing to do with these, Mr. Evans, I'm sorry.
Yes, they do. They support the department.
These have nothing to do with the commission. This is all community. This is about Etna Township residents. This is about safety. I've gotten lots of calls over on Columbia Road where people are speeding down through there. We have golf carts crossing the road, more golf carts actually that are in that area. This is something that will be preventative. It could deter drivers as they speed down the road, that, you know, you're doing this amount of speed, please slow down, to prevent them. You know, like I said, there's it shows you your speed limit going towards the actual sign, and then when you're leaving, so it gets you both ways. And it's a 24/7 day a week sign that actually shows that, and then the report spits out. You could do a report daily, you could do it weekly, you could do it whenever you want to do the report, but it could be presented to the board, so we'll have some ideas. I think this will help. Rather than writing tickets, this will help with deterring the residents or people that are just driving through to slow down. So I think this is a one way, and talking to Hebron Police Department, which upholds that law, that area in Hebron, they love this system. They've used it, they've never had problems with it. It's something that they've had for 3 years, and it's never been a problem with them monitoring the residents. And the residents love it as well. In fact, there was one resident that asked for them to move it to their area because they had a lot of speeders, so they moved it over to their area of town, and it slowed down the speeders, and the report showed that it slowed the speeders down.
I agree that it's effective, but my thing is you haven't even talked to the commissioners to support them, because all departments get their funding through the commissioners. So they can direct more resources, just like they helped with the prosecutor's office, just like they helped with the Licking County Planning Commission. They got them more resources. This is more funding that we're taking on that we shouldn't. That others, again, we're spending over about $500,000 a year on sheriffs that we really shouldn't have to, but to provide that safety. So to not even have that conversation with the commissioners and propose this of we'll just pay for it. We don't have endless money. We need to be good stewards of our funds because economies can change. And if Amazon leaves, that was 1.2 million a year, it went down to 1.1, and I think we're projecting at 1 million now. They're halfway through their abatement. If they leave, we're gonna lose a lot of money, and this is just more funds.
Yeah, Mr. Evans.
Between the two of you, you're at 7 minutes for this part.
Right, she exceeded hers quite a bit, so.
Okay.
But again, proper due diligence would.
I'm gonna say this, because I got comment time. I've sat up here for 15 years, 15.5 years, and I've listened to people, can we slow the speeders down? Can we slow the speeders down? There's speeds in our neighborhoods, can we do all this? They've talked speed bumps, they've talked signs, they've talked patrols. We're actually able to afford to have the sheriffs in our township, which, being on the fire board, I've heard of the EMS people can't go in a house because the sheriff's not there, because it's a what do you call this? Things a domestic dispute too going on here. There's lots of reasons, and the sheriffs are a great idea to have it here. This is another thing people have asked for and asked us for all those years. I think it's a great idea to have this. It slows people down. It's an improvement. It slows people down. It gives us counts of people that are speeding, that are not speeding, and we can use that to present to the sheriff and say, look, here we have a real problem. Here's what's happening on this road. We need to patrol it. We need to write some tickets at that point, because we have to control the sheriffs, what they can do at that point too. So this is just another tool we can to control the speeders in our township. And especially through neighborhoods and some of the other streets that are out there, they've come in, they've taken side streets because of some of the warehousing that we have in here. So, but we get our money, our revenue to pay for this from those warehouses. So let's use some of that warehouse money that's causing these people to come through here that are not from here and slow them down.
I still say we need more
Roll
ticket
call,
writing,
Ms.
because tickets
Roll call, Ms.
are
Varian.
being given. Thanks for talking over me.
Mr. Evans?
No, because
Mr.
of.
Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to appoint Ms. Nita Hanson as the primary point of contact with the Southwest Licking County Water and Sewer District. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
She's not replacing our person on the board, Trent Stepwell. She's just working with him, or she's
Liaison.
going to be our liaison.
Yes.
All right.
Trustee Evans?
Yes, hopefully we can kind of move forward. I was appointed the contact person to deal with the capacity issues and all that, and then Ms. McKee, you went around that they stopped working with me, and then we've gotten nowhere. The capacity issue with the Southwest Licking Water Department is a serious issue. We've got numerous projects that cannot move forward until that's resolved. And the proposals that have been done are putting the development costs on the back of residents through TIFs. 5 TIFs were given away at the end after the election was lost. 5 TIFs. Mr. Johnson was included in that, to the developers on 2 properties alone. Over 10 years, $3.2 million is being taken away from the school district because of that. And that's a lot of money. So when the school district doesn't get that revenue, they go to the residents for levies and bonds. So that's my concern. And the proposals that have come from the water district before with Mr. Platt put even more burden on the residents, wanting to extend it to 20 years. So I think it's a serious issue. It should have been dealt with last year because the water plant original estimate was 20 to 25 million. It's gone up to 60 million. They're looking at ways to cut costs. I mean, that's serious money. So I hope that Ms. Hanson can properly deal with it, but the board needs to be updated. We need to have input to properly address it because, as everybody knows, it takes a unanimous board for any kind of economic incentives or that. So to exclude one trustee would be unwise. Please include everybody so we can actually do something for the residents in this township.
Roll call, Ms. Varian, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to authorize Ms. Nita Hanson to access the township emails to fill public records requests only. Is there a second?
Go second.
Discussion?
We're talking for everybody's emails?
Yes, they would be, she would have access to fill public records requests only, meaning she would have access to any of our emails. To fulfill public records requests only.
And that's for all officials?
All
and employees?
officials, all officials, correct.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's to take mine away and give it to her.
That's right.
That's what we
Mrs.
want to do when you hire.
Yes, we hired a township administrator, Ms. Nita Hanson, will now have full access to fulfill public records requests only. And that would be to access our email.
And point of
Right.
clarification,
The
she would
server.
be the point person for records that
Yes,
people should send for records.
Mrs. Varian turned it over to the board in the last meeting. And now we are turning it over to Ms. Nita Hanson, our new administrator.
Okay. I do have questions because Ms. Varian had to turn that over because records were being withheld from her, and Ms. McKee, without board authorization, had our outside counsel send her a letter on September 28th, 2022, threatening her with tortious interference in that and removing the access that she had for approximately 24 hours. She needed to get that access because Ms. McKee and others were withholding emails and records from production or stating that no records exist when records did exist. So this board, Mr. Johnson, Ms. McKee, you removed our fiscal officer's access to provide those records, but now you want to give somebody else access. I'm just wondering what's the difference in that? And are records finally going to be prepared? Because I do have concerns that there have been several that have made records requests and they've erroneously been told that drafts are not public records. They are. That things are personal notes when they are not. Reports are public records. And I think there needs to either be more training or what on actually what public records are to keep us out of court, because the decisions made so far have not been correct. And I do have concerns, I believe our fiscal officer does, if she would like to use my time.
So my office is a separate office, and I am separately elected as a servant to this community, and my records are in my control. There are certain things in my records that are not to be released, and there are multiple revised codes that dictate that. And I am more than happy to give you records from my email when you request them. But I sought the advice of the prosecutor, and he said that there is no access to my records.
Thank you, Ms. Deering, I appreciate that. Just to let you know that she will have full access as long as the board votes it. And yes, you're right, that was never your duties to fulfill those public records requests. That was never your duty. Mr. Evans forced you to do it.
No, he didn't.
Well, you were doing them, and he kept on you about them. Now you pulled it over to the board, which we took it back from you, but that's not your duties to do, though, to actually fulfill it.
Well, the revised
so
code
we will-
dictates that I am not subservient to this board.
That's right, you're right, you're your own
And that my
entity.
records are under my control, which my emails are my records.
You're right that you are your own entity, that we've always said. You are the fiscal officer, you're not a part of the board, so I respect that. I respect what you are supposed to do in your duties. But when it comes to public records request, as long as we have access to the server, if we as a board says, votes that we can give it over to the administrator, Ms. Nita Hanson, she will be able to fill the public records request only from any of us.
That goes against what the prosecutor states.
See, and you want to disregard the prosecutor for your own wishes. And I would like to know, Ms. McKee, why have you refused to respond to records requests? So, Ms. Hanson, I would suggest, we have a litany of records requests out. I personally, as a trustee and resident, need to request records because they're withheld from me. And as I said, comply with the law and follow the rules. That's all I ask for anybody.
That's
It's
right.
not harassment, it's do your duty for the this isn't our township. These aren't our records. So I would strongly suggest that this board not act hastily, again, due diligence. Ms. Varian spoke to the prosecutor, and you're just going to disregard. That is, I should say shocking, but it's expected at this point.
Okay?
So,
Roll call.
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
As to any outstanding public records requests that have been outstanding before, Ms. Mary and I are going to be working together so that I can understand what is outstanding and what needs to be fulfilled. That was something that, I discussed with the board, that I have her chart and we just need to sit down together.
well, the majority of them are Ms. McKee's refusal to comply with the records request, and a few from Mr. Johnson. And there's no
There
reason.
are quite a few that were requests for your information as well. So I'm just
Correct,
saying
and
that.
I've asked for that program to allow the production of it, and that has been stifled. That has been blocked. And again, I've reached out to Mike at IT. No response from that.
So that's
With
the
our
first I've
package.
heard. I mean, I'm happy to work with any of our consultants or, our third parties. I did ask him to reach out to you. This is the first I've heard that issue was not taken care of, but I don't think that issue, I know that we're talking specifically about emails, but in the broader scope of public records requests, I believe that there are outstanding requests for like your videos and things like that wouldn't fall within what we're talking about here in terms of access to emails, but on the more global, umbrella of public records requests. So it's just, I just want you to know that it's something that Ms. Varian and I are going to work together on. We've exchanged emails about working together on
But we're
getting
at-
everything done. So
But we're at this point because Ms. McKee and Mr. Johnson would not allow her those records or produce them to her, so she had to hand it back. But the program it's part of our Microsoft 365 G3 package.
Roll call,
It-
Ms. Varian. Your 3 minutes, Mr. Evans. Roll call, Ms. Varian, please.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes,
Ms. Berry, and I suggest you contact the prosecutor.
I will.
that's fine. Perfect.
I
Okay.
understand you already did, Ms. McKee.
Again, over to the solar farms. I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Evans.
Okay, well, I appreciate it that it's on the agenda. While I helped with the assistance, was helped with the assistance of Judy Kapmeyer and Gary Burkholder, since last meeting, we got the resolution prepared. We got all the information to provide it to the commissioners, and the way it works is we can declare ourselves an exclusionary zone where big wind and big solar above 50 megawatts would be excluded. And we can't do that, but we can ask the commissioners to do that. So in doing so, I was alerted by the prosecutor that, well, they're going to discuss it at their last meeting. I don't believe it was on the agenda. They had sent us a letter saying that they didn't want to address it individually, that they have the control, the power to, as they come in, evaluate it and say no, have a hearing, or if they do nothing, it goes through. Now, they want us to just rely on that. I don't think we should do that. We need to dictate our own destiny. Boards change, commissioners change. If a developer comes in, who knows what. But what this resolution would do is simply ask the commissioners to consider adopting on the county level, setting it out as an exclusionary zone, prohibiting the solar farms, and that would take care of the issues, like I said, that Hartford's had to fight with. Now, prior, our zoning inspector said we've got some stuff in the zoning that can take care of some things on a smaller level, which we'll have to deal with small solar separately, but this is for the large. And I do believe Ms. McKee previously said she supported it and wanted to move forward or at least discuss it. So I think to protect the township, we've heard from the residents in the CAC survey, and that we should move forward with an official request of the commissioners, which is the standard practice in this, and the commissioners actually said they wanted us to initiate it first, that we've had discussions with them before, so we're following through on that. And like I said, the last meeting, I was given charge of moving this forward, and so now here I am presenting it to the board. So I would move that resolution 23-05-02 what resolution are we on? Or we don't have any resolutions yet. 01. That we request as presented of the commissioners to make us an exclusionary zone. Yes. Is there any discussion?
Oh, okay.
But I think you have to have a second first.
Oh, we didn't go to second yet, that's why I was waiting.
Oh,
Okay.
well, you have to tell for a second.
Well, I'll second it to discuss. I personally, and listened today to Mr. Kennard as a farmer, and not just farmers, residents. And I don't think one resident should dictate what's going to happen in this township. With that being said, I would like to table this and have a work session with the community. I think that's my opinion, and that's what I think we need to do. So I would make a motion to table this resolution for the solar farm.
And is there a work session in that motion?
I would like to see a work session, yes. Several work sessions, and invite the community to come in and have a conversation with the board to see what the community wants.
The records practice purposes, you didn't get a second. You
Is
started
there-
discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
I think that's appropriate. I didn't expect us to pass it, and I propose this so we can have a discussion, because that's one of the things lacking on this board is discussion. As you've seen on all the previous matters, nothing, let's talk about it. So this, I welcome a work session. We should get the community involved. It's not just one individual. I've been talking to many about this, and we do have to control the destiny of our development. And it's not, I can't sell my house to Jiffy Lube and they knock it down and start changing people's oil in the neighborhood and say, well, I'm out that money. That's where zoning, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, you have freedom of your property, but it's regulated. And it's always a tight rope to walk, but there's been a lot of impact in Hartford, others where we need to be, like I said, the authors of our, excuse me, sir, but we need to be the authors of our destiny. And we can't allow people to come in. That's why we got the residential hotel when it wasn't meant for apartments, because that was allowed. That's why we have semi-fueling at Sheets, because we need to be proactive on this stuff. So I do agree, we need to talk, and I hopefully this isn't delayed and we could have it within the month and move forward.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Is this on the?
Oh,
your
you
motion?
need discussion.
Yeah, that's all right. This is on your motion
To table.
table it.
To table and have a work
Okay, I wanted to
session.
make sure I had the right one.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Now what about the other motion?
It's tabled, so
That's tabled, so good.
Yeah, just table, yeah. So we'll move on. We're going to move over to the wetland. Did you have another?
No, I think it was taken care of.
You sure?
Yeah. I don't.
We can't hear.
It's supposed to be a public meeting where people can hear.
Well, yes, we understood. I just want to make sure she didn't need to do anything with her report, because we have it there as additional. Okay, all right. Well, we'll move over to the new copier. The township received quotes from the Gordon Flesh and Mid-Ohio Strategic Technology. The quote from Mid-Ohio Strategic Technology is for a Toshiba, which with a purchase price of $9,586. The township has used Gordon Flesh for the past 19 years. The current copier was installed over 8 years ago on December 9, 2014. The serviceman has concern with the availability of the parts with the age of the machine. The quote from Gordon Flesh for purchase outright from $3,780.88 without the inner, finisher for stapling, and $4,601.36 for the finisher stapler. Now, when we talk about the finisher stapler, that means the machine itself will do the stapling for us. Correct. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. We as a township, since I've been here a year, I don't see us needing that additional feature. We don't do that much stapling. It would save us money. Mrs. Brown works here in the office daily. I talked to her about it to get her opinion on the matter. She felt the same way. Is that correct? That you didn't think you needed that additional feature? So because of that, I moved to authorize expenditure to purchase the Canon copier from Gordon Flesh, not to exceed $4,000 without the finisher, and to authorize myself, Rozland McKee, to sign the contract, including the image care maintenance agreement that includes labor, parts, and toner. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Evans?
I do have a question on the stapler. The stapler was an additional 4,000 something? Or what's the cost of without and with?
Close. Wait a minute, because
It
I
was
scribbled
a
it
little
out.
under 1,000 for the finishing unit.
like $800, what about $900?
A
Yeah,
little less than 1,000.
yeah.
I mean, don't you think that we've had it 8 years? That's $120 a year. The labor costs of, I've had to do that when I've printed stuff here and stayed. It's a pain, and that's part of a standard office, and I think we're gonna be nickel and diamond stuff, and if we're gonna be more efficient, why not? It's an investment, 8 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't know if I should, I still am trying to get used to all this parliamentary stuff, if I'm allowed to speak or not. So, Mr. Evans, the only thing I would say is that Mrs. Brown, who is the one who uses it mostly, said she doesn't need it. So, I realize we're talking about a difference of $1,000, but,
When you're trying.
she said it's not necessary,
Taxpayers'
and
dollars,
it
and I
just gives
don't-
another
I can
part of it
still
to break down.
But obviously, she doesn't have enough time to keep the minutes up to date, so we should be as efficient in time. I don't understand why. Obviously, we're
If the
becoming
residents
big.
of the township want to
That
spend
was
another
not-
$1,000
see,
on
that's-
vacation,
We're
I'm trying
becoming-
to save money for
Miss-
the residents.
Right,
Don't shush
but
me
at
when
what-
you interrupted me.
At what
The
expense?
disrespect.
And we're trying to be efficient, we're a growing township, and once all these development deals with the TIFs come in and the reimbursements and all that, there's gonna be a lot more paperwork, so why don't we be efficient and not, we're trying to save pennies and spend dollars on labor and all that. That's my point.
I'll tell you, a stapler for many years of working on copiers and printers and stuff,
Tell me
staplers
about it.
mean GMs.
Tell me
service
about it.
calls. That's all I can say.
We have a maintenance agreement, and everyone I've worked with,
Yeah.
as long as they're maintained, but.
That's not
Manual
true.
stapler works
It's not
perfect.
true.
His salary, so it doesn't matter.
It's not true.
8 hours a day.
Is the labor and maintenance included in that 4,000, or would it be separate?
It's the same maintenance contract that we have every year now.
Roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on over.
You might want to make a motion that you can sign, I don't know if he's going to need you to sign anything.
Okay.
Was it already included? in
Yeah.
the
She did,
motion?
yeah.
And just you guys keep telling me to
Oh,
make sure she does that.
Yeah.
We'll start.
So, I did have a point of order about the ponds. It's on the agenda. Why did that get skipped?
Is there further discussion? I just thought
I
it
mean,
was
we
because
adopted
there
the
had
agenda.
already been discussions.
Under old business?
Yes. B, item B.
I think you guys said because you talked to that, after that thing last night, you guys weren't going to do a motion because you're going to meet with that gentleman. Is that
Right,
correct?
which is the
To see
25th
what he's going to do before you.
of
bring it
May.
on the property.
Yeah. So that's why.
But my point is, either it should have been removed from the agenda, but it's on the agenda. I would like to have a discussion.
I know in your report you had that discussion briefly about, and, which I did have it under, right after the solar farms, which is pond property. You said you didn't need to go any further with it, so that's what we kind of moved on.
Yeah.
But we have a meeting scheduled coming up, I don't know.
Right.
With
March 25th.
March 25th, yeah. Which will go in more discussion.
Okay,
which
well, I
we'll
have a
it on
brief
the next
discussion.
agenda.
Well, I have a brief statement on that. I would just like, after, again, attending the pond clinic and speaking extensively with Soil and Water, they keep saying we need to maintain it. And I keep seeing things of moving forward to fill it in, and that before we move forward with anything, because I've seen quotes about figuring out the wetlands to be able to move forward and fill it in, that we need to evaluate before we spend any money of what direction we're going to go, because fish and game or fish and wildlife, there's grants available that wouldn't cost us anything. And I think one of the main factors that was indicated was we don't want the cost. Well, there's agencies that'll pay for it, And we shouldn't make any decision unless we know the full cost of the wetland mitigation, the purchasing the wetlands as an offset, and all that. And I just say, let's make sure we have all the information communicated to all the trustees and board, and especially the homeowner, who it would affect. And there's great concern again about that underwater pressure. Even if it didn't, if there's one drop of water for him, or if he sells it to somebody else, they're gonna blame that pond. So I think we need to really move forward with full due diligence. And I was a little concerned when I saw those estimates for the consultant, but apparently we're not dealing with that. So let's just make sure we get all the information. And I actually think we should have a workshop with Soil and Water, bring them in, discuss it here so we get it firsthand. So I would move that we have a work session with Soil and Water. If you could set that up, Ms. Hanson, that would be great, either during a meeting or before a
Is
meeting.
that a motion or discussion? You went from a motion into a discussion. You
Well,
said
I'll make a motion to hold a work session on the Park Pond and invite Soil and Water and any other agencies that are relevant.
Army Corps of Engineers. You need a second. You need a second.
I'll second.
So I just want to make sure, are you specifically addressing just the Smoke Road property in your motion about the work session? Is it related to
The smoke-
big area on Smoke Road?
Correct.
Because the point was made at the pond clinic last night that this is not a pond, it is a wetland. And so I already have a meeting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife engineer, and to address that issue of it being a wetland and the recommendations that they make. So I'm not sure.
But that would still go through Soil and Water also.
So I don't know the benefit of scheduling by motion a work session with Licking County Soil and Water. I don't know that the timing is right for that yet.
Well, I'm not setting a date for it, but saying to have one before, to get community input, to get all that at some point before we make a rash decision of we're gonna fill it in, or we're gonna do this. So that's all I'm asking for.
I will continue to work with Licking County Soil and Water, as I have always stated from the very beginning, that I would always work with Licking County Soil and Water on any kind of a remediation on this wetland.
But I'm just
So
asking for
let's
a work
do a
session.
roll call on the work session. Ms. Varian, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. McKee?
No.
Now you're at state security.
Okay, so,
Now you're at state security.
for what? Okay, so we're gonna move over to the state security. I move to authorize myself, Ms. Rozland McKee, to sign an agreement with state security for the proposal as approved in the January 7th and February 21st, 2023 meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson?
So we approved money, but we didn't approve anybody to sign for it, so no work was
Right.
done. Okay.
Yeah. Discussion, Mr. Evans?
No, just for our recollection, I would just ask that if we're gonna be talking about any agreements or anything, just to have a copy for staff, because it's been several months. But no, I'm glad to see that we're finally getting authorizations, because there's been many that weren't authorized and signed outside, like the aggregation that went back in, I think, October. So I applaud that we're moving slowly in the right direction.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move over into the zoning commission appointments. Mr. Hayes passed away, and Josh Deani resigned from the zoning commission board. And I would like to appoint Adam Kelly to finish an unexpired term of Roger Hayes with the start on January 1st, 2019, ending December 31st, 2023. Is there a second?
So
Sorry?
his would end this year, is that what you're saying?
December 31st, 2023, yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion?
And that would be because it's an unexpired term of Roger Hayes, so Roger Hayes had a little less than a year left.
Yes.
As far as discussion, we really should have executive sessions, interview people. It just seems like we're picking, I support Adam Kelly, he, for the position, but again, my thing is, we need to have the proper procedure of speaking to these individuals, because I don't think it's fair to ask these individuals maybe some sensitive topics in public without an executive session. We got into that issue before. So again, next time, can we just have an executive session, interview the people, and then choose? Because the zoning commission and development, what we're doing on, it's a very important board. And I think, again, due diligence, instead of just picking people because,
He had a great resume, just so you know.
oh, I agree. But again, it doesn't give us any opportunity to ask questions, interview. Let's look at any other entity and say, hey, what's everybody else do? That's kind of a good indication of, hey, maybe we should do the same thing. We did it last year when I was president, of interviewing people, then making decisions.
Well,
Let's do that, but
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Evans, I'm sorry, you had plenty of time to speak to him. You talked to him about the pond. You've been over there for others, so, I've seen emails. I'm sure you could have a one-on-one with Mr. Kelly. He applied because he's interested, and I think he had a great resume, so it's up to the board now to vote. Mrs. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Kelly.
Thanks.
I move to appoint Shelley Ipact to finish the unexpired term of Josh Diani, which started on January 1st, 2022, ending January 31st, 2026. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Again, I think any appropriate questions should have been in executive session, so I'll refrain.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move over to the fiscal officer area. I move to transfer $1,000 from other expenses, which is, I guess this is an expense, let's see, what do you call that?
It's called other expenses.
Other expense, yeah.
That's what it's called under the number.
Yeah, 1000-110-599-0002, cell phone administrator, which should be 1000-330-341-000. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
I do have a question. Is the cell phone, the accounts different for the administrator and the trustees, or to keep?
They come on one bill, but I separated them out
Okay.
to keep track.
All right.
And I think that, did you do a motion or a resolution?
That, yeah.
Just a motion?
And, okay,
You need, it can be a motion, right?
Yeah, it can be. I thought she said resolution. Yeah. Just want to make sure.
roll call?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move resolution 230502, this should be 02, 01, because that first one, that's right. To approve the purchase order as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
No, I'm just glad we're finally paying the funeral services for Mr. Courtwright. Although we are outside that reimbursement area, correct, Ms. Hanson?
I don't know that that's the case.
It says 60 days.
I don't dispute that, but according to what the funeral home said, they
We're gonna
believe
try.
it's still, I think it's mostly limited to the fact about whether the state has any funds to pay. But, you know, we did our due diligence to determine that he was indigent and a resident. I spoke to the trustee that owns the house to ensure that he did not hold a beneficial interest in the trust. And, I mean, there was no dispute that he didn't own real property, but there was a question about whether or not he had a beneficial interest in the trust that owned the house that he was living in, so. But no, I don't know that we're outside, that it's not gonna be available for reimbursement.
Okay, I just,
It may not be, I don't know, but I'll submit it once it's all approved.
Okay.
I just
Thank you
think-
very much. I appreciate you digging into that.
My pleasure.
well, and from, because this has been dragging on since, I think, October, November, and we just need to timely address this, and even say yes or no, because if someone thinks they're trying to get over on us, anything, say no, and let them take their action, so I'm glad to see that through. And then I did have a question. No, I'm good.
Okay. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to ratify the payments for the bills as shown on the payment listing. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question on the Ice Miller. That's the one dealing with the NCA. It's a very low bill. It appears not much activity. I mean, I think he's billing at near $600 an hour, so $885 isn't much. That was supposed to be completed last August 1st. And I'm kind of concerned that with these bills racking up, no taxes being paid, that's being dealt with properly. And then I see Brocious and Griggs, I believe, is on here. Did they ever, Ms. Varian, remove those unauthorized expenses on before January 10th or 9th?
Yes, they did, and that's a revised bill.
Okay.
Is it-
Because
What month is that for?
I don't, the bill's in here, but I know the total is $5,143, and I think that was the total, and that was, Ms. Hanson, I don't know if you were aware of it, but there was no appropriations or anything, and there was work done. So, but it appears the attorneys agreed to remove that from the bill, so I was glad to see that.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Did you have anything else?
Announcements?
Ms. McKee, fiscal officer, Mike, I'm sorry.
I just have a question. Who is responsible for scheduling the sheriff deputy to be here or not to be here? I keep meaning to ask, and I just haven't.
Yeah, we are working on getting a deputy here as a special duty.
Yeah.
So that would be, we're in the process of getting that done. So that's something that we have to work with the sheriff's office to find that sheriff that wants to come in and do that special duty.
Okay, well, I filled out all the paperwork, so you just have to
Yes.
go and schedule it.
Yes,
And then there was a price difference if they have a car or not?
correct, $15, I believe.
Is that something the board wants them to have or not?
I don't think, that's something we can vote on, but
You didn't approve
we didn't include the car.
the
in the-
car
yeah.
and then approve.
Yeah. So, because that's additional $15, and when that, yeah.
I
So
wanna make
if they
sure.
needed to use the vehicle, if they needed to have a car, if they have to make an arrest or do something, they can call back up and that person can show up with the car.
Because I believe the purchase order was approved last time, so whoever's scheduling, you can go
Correct.
ahead and
Okay,
do that.
so it's done. Okay, great. That's what we would do. Thank you. Okay. Announcements from the trustee and comments are limited 3 minutes. Trustee Johnson, do you have any comments tonight?
No.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, a couple things about the Fred G. Bragg Jr. Memorial. I am trying to secure, work with family, an honor guard for the ceremony, just due to the delay in approving the date. We're having some difficulty in that. I've reached out to several organizations. They've already scheduled theirs. Still waiting from the Sheriff's Department with their honor guard, but if anybody has any contacts with people that could possibly help, please reach out to me. And like I said, I'm working with the brother on that. I think it would be great to have there. We even talked about the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts as backups there. And then as far as farming rights, somebody had indicated, I wholly believe we should support the farmers. A lot of stuff is at the state level, but there's also county level things. Granville does it quite a bit, purchasing the farming rights of giving the farmers what they would sell to the developers above what the farm as itself is worth. So there's things that we can look at to support that. And like I said, Granville does that quite a bit. Then as far as everything else, I just ask the board and staff and administrator that we just need to work together. We need to coordinate. We need to, for the benefit of the residents. And I mean, it's not funny. It's the withholding of public records. That everything is a battle for transparency, and it shouldn't be. And that's just follow the rules, follow the law, do what's right. But as far as, like I said, I don't know why the appointment to the BZA wasn't on here. We put out applications for that. That should be coordinated by board, not just one trustee. And it seems like, again, everything is just controlled by one trustee. And I'm really concerned about the NCA. Again, these things should have been done last year, and they're not going on the tax rolls. So we have no ability to force payment on this to get those funds in there. And like I said, the park, I'm glad we're gonna have a work session on that. Or no, actually no, they voted no on the work session. So I don't know why, especially after the issue to begin with, but we need to preserve this land for the future generations. And then Skinell, again, that has not been dealt with. I know there's a meeting coming up, but there's no reason to. I began working with them before I even took my seat and then was stopped. We need to do this for our residents that are impacted on Lynn's Road.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Berry?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.